Hello, I'm Nathalie Dupree, and I have a menu designed for the summer, but it's very good all year round. It includes a cold smoked salmon dip, grilled rack of lamb, that's even great in the spring, grilled vegetables, and finally a raspberry peach mousse. Easy and indestructible. This raspberry peach mousse is very easy to do, but you need to be organized, you need to be prepared. The gelatin sets up quickly, so you have to have everything ready. The glasses, for instance, are out, and if I was going to do this in a mold, which is kind of risky for this recipe, you can do it if you're lucky, but mainly just a pretty bowl should be ready. If you used a mold, it should be oiled. So what I have here is everything organized. I've got the gelatin out, I've got the ice cream over here softened, I've broken up my raspberries in pieces and peaches into pieces. So first thing you do is bring 2 cups of water to the boil and pour it over 2 packages of peach flavored gelatin. And just give it a good stir to dissolve it. This has a brand name that you all know very well. So that works out very nicely for this. I never thought that I would find myself teaching you something like this, but we wanted to do a nice, easy gelatin dessert for you because so many people seem to be afraid of it. Now you stir that well to dissolve. Then you whisk in a cup of sour cream and just whisk that until it's smooth. I'm going to do it over here where it's not quite so hot. Excuse me. I have 2 bowls going here. Hope I don't keep making that mistake of going from one to the other. Although you would do yours right into the heat and it'd be all right. Be a little bit together here. Now you've got a pint of peach ice cream, and it's cut into at least 12 pieces. It's broken up. You don't want to have it be so large that it won't dissolve quickly, and you don't want to have it so small that the hot liquid there melts it quickly. So 12 is about a good ratio. And you just stir it until it's melted and smooth. I call it indestructible because really anyone can make this without coming up with a bad product. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't drop off of a spoon or something like that if you picked it up. It means that anybody can make it. It's just that simple. Now you break up 2 10-ounce packages of frozen raspberries, and sometimes, usually those raspberries stay separate, but in this case they have got some ice forming around them, and I'm sure that nobody ever opens your freezer and moves a package of raspberries, and that everything is perfect in your house. So 2 10-ounce packages of frozen raspberries and 1 8-ounce package of frozen sliced peaches. It's important for them to still be frozen because that's what's going to make the gelatin set up. And you toss all that with a tablespoon of lemon juice, and then you stir all of this goodness together until it's nice and cold, and you just keep feeling it back. And it sure is. It's getting right there. Just as that all melts in there, I'm going to give it just a second more, and then I'm going to ladle it into the mold. This is, as you can see, ridiculously easy. I try to make it so that you get both things. In fact, it says ladle, but you know me, I'm just going to pick up this and dump it in and then save a little bit in a second to ladle into those 2 glasses so you can see it. So there, that's about all that I'm going to get poured in, and then I'm going to ladle some into my glasses so you can see what an optional serving method might be. These are awfully pretty, and they're small portions. I think some people in my house might complain if they got so little, but they sure are pretty holding it, and I think I would have to stir that a little bit more till the raspberries were broken up more if I was going to put them in these glasses, just to be sure. Don't watch, I'm using my fingers. Don't complain. There we go. I'll put another peach in there, and then that'll give it just perfect. It's really nice. Refrigerate it at least 3 hours, and it'll last up to 3 days. How is that for good news? Now, I'm going to whip 2 cups of heavy cream with a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract and a half a cup of sugar, and you just whip it till it's stiff. And if you have a pastry bag, put it in a pastry bag. This has been sitting on ice. Let's just see how it does. And you decorate the top of it. Now, if I decorate the top of this, it'll probably sink through because, of course, that's supposed to be. We'll just see what happens. Nope, it lived right. How about that? Maybe it won't sink till you all stop looking. But obviously, you would wait until yours was set and put that on the top. Or you could do it in pretty little shapes. I'm going to show you a pretty little shape right on the counter here, which just how to do this. What you do is you start at what for me is 1 o'clock, is probably reversed for you, and then you work all the way around like that, and then pull your tip off. That's the way you make tiny stars. So that's what we are with there. Now let me show you how to do this very, very, very pretty roll recipe. Basil crescent rolls. You can use any herb you want to, thyme, oregano, or marjoram if you don't have any basil. Basil seems to be one thing that goes pretty early in the summer, so the first thing to give out. So if you're moving on into the fall, or early spring too, it's not quite as ready soon as the thyme and the marjoram. So you must use fresh herbs. The dried ones just don't work. I do this in the food processor. You can do it by hand. You dissolve 1 package of active dry yeast and 1 tablespoon of sugar in 1/4 of a cup of warm water. And that water should be between 105 and 115 degrees. While you're waiting, you melt your butter. When your yeast is proofed, and here it is, this has proved that it's alive. I hope you can see it. It's nice and foamy on the top, and that has actually, it's more than dissolved, it's proofed. But you really don't technically have to dissolve it. And you could do all of that in the food processor if you wanted to, although sometimes those little granules get goopy and caught in funny places. Now, when it's proofed, you add another tablespoon of sugar and 1/2 cup of warm milk and your 1/4 cup of melted butter. Throw it all in there and add a teaspoon of salt. Here it is right here. 2 eggs, lightly beaten. You need salt to bring out the flavor, and also it kind of retards the growth. And the yeast wants to eat that sugar. That's what the whole point of it is. The yeast needs that sugar to grow. Don't think that you can just leave the sugar out of a recipe. It converts it, and it needs it to eat. And 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour. And you beat all of this until it's blended. And then you add your flour 1/2 cup at a time. This is just plain bread flour is really the best, or unbleached all-purpose. Oop, got it on the wrong way, I hope. There we go. And then you add it about 1/2 cup at a time to make a smooth but a loose and sticky dough. Let me just add a little bit more very quickly here. You need a total of about a minute, all in all, until it's smooth and soft like a baby's bottom. It's a really pretty easy thing. Then you take it out and put it in an oiled plastic bag and let it double. I'm going to show you what that looks like. I have one here down here for you, and I just don't want to take the time, mainly because it's just so noisy. Here's what it looks like. It's been sitting a little bit longer than I would like for you to see how it looks like a smooth baby's bottom, but let me just show you how smooth it is. You can see. Isn't that nice? And when it's kneaded enough, it bounces back. Now, when it's doubled, here, you can also put this in a bowl. I don't mean to say only plastic bag. I don't have any relationship with any plastic bag companies. So it's just that I find it easier, but you can also oil a bowl. You know, I'm just bone lazy. Now, when it doubles, you put 2 fingers in, it doesn't bounce back, and that's how you know that it doubled. Punch it down and divide it into 3 pieces. 1. You can even weigh it if you want it to be exact. And you roll each one out into a circle about 10 inches in diameter. So here we go. And just keep rolling it out, and then I'm going to cut it into pie-shaped wedges. And then I'll mix 1/3 cup of the softened butter with a tablespoon of chopped fresh basil and 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese. Let me just see if I'm here. I need to get it 10 inches, and that sure isn't there yet. How about that? That looks about right. Guess it always depends on your frame of reference. So here we go. 10 inches. I don't have as good an eye as I'd like to. Okay, there we go. And then we'll go ahead here and cut it into wedges. Like that. Okay, good. I'm going to pick up one of these wedges and just show you here how it does. You spread 1/3 of this butter mixture right over this little wedge. These are such nice rolls. In fact, this whole menu is just a very nice, refreshing menu. Maybe you've heard my story about people that are afraid to make bread because in pie crusts and biscuits, it just seems to be one of those things that terrify people. And once you get it under control, you can do a recipe like this ever so easily. Now just take here and roll up each triangle starting from the fat end, and I'll show you there's a little hand motion you get there. Just roll it like that. See? Isn't that cute? Cute little guy, isn't it? Yeah. Put it on your pastry sheet, on your baking sheet with your other rolls, and let them double in a greased baking sheet. Just pull the ends in to make a crescent shape. And here I just happen to miraculously have some. You mix an egg with a tablespoon of water and brush over the top. And try not to slop any on your baking sheet because it'll stick and it'll make a mess. Like I always say, people don't think anything of spending $50,000 to join a golf club. Well, they do think, a lot of it. I mean, I do. I'm not a member of a golf club. But lots of grown men and women spend $50,000 to join a golf club, $1,000 on golf clubs, and spend all day playing golf and don't think they're a failure if they can't hit a hole-in-one. But those of us that just want to cook, if we spend 45 cents making a bread dough and it doesn't work out perfectly the first time, we think we're a failure. So practice first and then go on. Now, what you want to do is to put this in a 375-degree oven on the top rack for about 15 minutes. And I say top rack, top or close to the top rack. If it's going to hit the top of the oven, don't put it on the top rack, which is what would happen to me right now. Did you ever have that happen to you? It's a terrible feeling. Now, here's someone I think you'll like to learn a lot of information from.
You know, there's nothing more elegant on the grill, nothing more delicious than a rack of lamb. You have a lot of choices when you go to the supermarket these days with regard to a rack of lamb. You can buy American lamb, which this is. Australia is importing some lamb, but then you have the New Zealand lamb. Now, New Zealand lamb often is a preference, particularly if you're cooking for just a few people, 2 or 3 people, because look at the difference in the size here. The American lamb, they breed it big. Bigger is better in this country in almost everything we do. In New Zealand, they breed with what they call the Finnish lamb, which has a tendency to make 2 lambs. They twin, so they have more of them, but they're smaller. This is a perfect size for 2 people for a nice dinner on the grill. Now, no matter which one you buy, when you go to the market, be sure to have the butcher crack the chine bone. Now, the chine is this part where the carcass was split in half, and very often they'll just cut through the bone with a saw, and then you have to carve it depending on how thick the butcher left the cuts. Don't let him do that. Always have the chine bone taken off. Just cut through the chine bone so that you can. Then, when you get it home, you can take off this whole back section of the chine bone, and you can do it better than the butcher. Just cut along the backbone here where the carcass was split and take that whole chine bone section off. It comes off very easily. Just cut that all the way off. Then take I like to literally skin clear down to this blade bone here. So you can just almost take that whole fell section off. Clear down to about here. Now actually you can take this whole piece off all the way down. And then we're going to French the thing. Now to French any piece of meat in the meat business means to take most of the meat off from between the bones. So we can go between the bones like so, and then take off these little pieces between the meat between the bone. And when you put that guy on the grill and grill it, it comes off looking just absolutely delicious. And then when you carve it, just cut between the ribs, and you have beautiful, elegant little chops.
For nearly a century, LeCreuset's colorful French cookware has been a favorite in kitchens around the world. From its bold finishes and uncompromised quality to its easy-to-clean materials, the brand's range of iconic products are as easy to use as they are to love.
These grilled racks of lamb are really lovely. You could do this with lamb chops too if you want to, but I really like a grilled rack of lamb. First thing that we want to do is to chop some herbs for the top. And here I have some mint. I'll just take it off the stalk and chop it down. Walk your knife and the small pieces fall to the bottom. And it smells heavenly. Gosh, does it smell terrific. And you can have thyme, I have lemon balm, I have rosemary, and you mix 5 tablespoons of all of these different herbs together with, 3 chopped garlic cloves, all in all. And that's it. Boy, it smells good. And some shallots, and all this gets mixed together, and you rub this over the lamb, which is right here. And let me show you about this lamb. You've already seen how it gets built, and I should show you how to chop the shallot and the garlic. I promise I'll do that if I have time. I wasn't thinking about what I was doing. And this is the shallot right here, and this is the garlic. Shallot and garlic. And here's the lamb, and you can see that this is the cap, which needs to come off, and there's a bone right in here which needs to come off. And it doesn't just peel off like that. You have to take a knife, or else you can just remove the whole portion right down there, all the way to the top of this noisette of lamb, and get rid of that. And then this is the chine bone, which has been removed. I could not find a New Zealand rack of lamb for you. I wish that I could have, because I really do prefer it, and I think it's smaller and more suitable. But anyway, I have 2 racks of lamb here. But if you could only get lamb chops, you could rub the lamb chops with them. And you just rub all over your lamb with it. Put it in the plastic bag and marinate it for half an hour or up to 2 days. And I think I should have added oil to that. But here's our marinade. We'll just dump this already in. It's already measured out. And I think I've just made a mess by putting my foil on first. You don't want to put your foil on until after you've marinated it, obviously. So there we go. And let me just show you that. There we go. Now, you preheat your oven to 425 degrees, and you wrap the bones with foil, like I just said, and brush a grill rack with some oil, and put the lamb on the grill. You can either do this in the grill or in the oven, one way or the other, under the broiler or in the oven. And what you're trying to do is to brown it. So you just put the meat on if you have on the grill, you put it towards the grill, which is the fat side down. If you have it under the broiler, you put it fat side up. And it really depends on you, whichever way you do it. So then you've got that. Now you go ahead, and here's the way it looks when it comes out of the grill. It comes out just like this. And so it's nice and browned. You brown it on one side and then you turn it. And then you put the meat in a small roasting pan. And you mix 3 tablespoons of water with a cup of white wine vinegar, excuse me. And you pour that around the meat. Now, so what I've done is I have browned this meat, seared it under a high heat, and now I'm going to roast it off in the oven. And you roast it 15 to 20 minutes, and 125 degrees for rare, 140 degrees for medium. Then you take it out and you let it rest 10 minutes. Now, the reason that I use the wine, vinegar, and water it's a silly reason, but a lot of people don't like the smell of lamb. And I don't know what it goes back to. I think it goes back to people being on ships, and maybe after Desert Storm it'll increase again. But anyway, I think they used to serve men lamb on ships. That's the oil for brushing the grill rack. And so a lot of men don't like the smell of it in the house. So I find if I add that vinegar and water, it clears the odor out of the house. And then I just use those juices for my lamb anyway, and it kind of cuts that fatty feeling anyway. So take it, put it into the oven, and I'll do that right now. So it's twice cooked. If you got in a terrible tight, by the way, or you heated up a real grill with coals on it, then you could just go ahead and cook this whole thing either in the pan or on the grill the rest of the way through, and it wouldn't matter. Now, go ahead and you skim the excess fat from the pan juices and you boil it down until it's nice and thick. And here's this. And then you slice the lamb, and let me show you that. I've got some already sliced here for you, which I'm going to move over to the platter, and then I'm going to come back and get the unsliced kind for you. Just wanted you to see it. Sliced. And then here it is, whole. And I guess what I'll do is just leave one hole, and I'll come over here and get this and show you how just to slice it. The trick is to have that chine bone removed, that vertebrae, that backbone removed, because that's what makes all the difference in the world. And go ahead and just slice right on through. Now you might get to something tough, and just don't look at my face, because see, I've got a bone there, but I've just slid right on through because it went through the vertebrae. And there you are. There are a lot of pretty ways to arrange your lamb. I'm going to move this over here so I can get to it. A couple different things that you can do. One is that you can overlap your pieces like that in a spiral. I'll have to go ahead and cut this one a little bit more, but you could go ahead and arrange it in a spiral like that on your platter, which is very pretty if you want to. Or you can take, and some people like to go ahead and cross the lamb in little pieces like that all the way around the platter. So and there are just dozens of things that you can do to make your platter look really interesting. And then you garnish it with rosemary, and people say, oh, isn't it pretty? Which is, of course, what we all like to hear. And then you can leave it whole as well if you prefer. So that's the way that is. It's a very nice dish. It's in the putting on the Ritz section of my book because, unfortunately, it's so expensive if all you can find is the American lamb. I find the New Zealand lamb a lot less expensive, and so if I could be sure that you all could get the least expensive lamb, then I would maybe even put it in Simply Smart. Also, I think it's a little exotic. People are afraid of it, and you do need to check out your guests before you do it. I prefer my lamb rare. Some people like it more well done. Now, grilled vegetables. And I think also there's a geographic thing. These are fabulous. You put one red bell pepper, which is a green bell pepper that's turned red, on a hot grill, and you char it. Or you can do it right over the stove top if you've got a gas stove. You just put it on here and let it get black all over. And everybody will come down and say, you're burning something, but you'll know. This is the way that it looks. When it's charred all over, now that's black, right? When it's charred all over, then you put it in a plastic bag, and that steams and pushes this, helps release the skin. And then when it's cool enough to handle, you just peel this right off, give a twist. Well, it's a vulgar sound from that pepper, isn't it? And you would get all that charred stuff off, and you get rid of the seeds here and this stem as well, and slice it, cut it into strips. And then you cut 3 small new potatoes into quarters. And these are red new potatoes. Not everyone is. Let me just keep turning this. See? It goes pretty fast. Here's this. And you can cut them into quarters this way. You can cut them in quarters the other way, but I wanted it more in wedge quarters. Put into boiling water. You put a new potato into boiling water and bring it back up to the boil, where an older potato you put into cold water. It's got to do with the starch content. So just throw that in your water and cook them about 5 minutes until they're nearly soft, and that is hot. And then you drain it. I'll put this over here and drain it. Got some already done there. Drain it. And meanwhile, quarter an onion. I love cooked onions. I suppose you know that by now, and I work them into recipes whenever I can. So just cut it into wedges like that, pull off the skin, and then here's a fennel bulb, and that's also called anise in the stores. This is fennel, or some people call it California anise. I'm going to turn this off so I don't burn myself, and then cut it into wedges, and you can cut off the frond there. Use that to garnish lots of things. That would be pretty on the lamb. And one time, I threw rosemary and fennel onto the grill, and it gave the most wonderful flavor to it. A lot of people dry out fennel fronds and use them for fish. And there's your fennel bulb cut into eighths. Now you toss all of these vegetables with 1/3 cup of olive oil, just right here. Put it all in this bowl over here. And then grill them until, you don't have to grill the peppers then. The rest of them, you just add that to them when it's all done. You grill them until they're charred lightly all over, and they are really fabulous. Then to the bowl of the remaining oil here, you whisk in a garlic clove and 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. There we are, garlic clove, red wine vinegar, and you grate your Parmesan cheese, and you add your grilled vegetables and your red bell pepper strips, which are important, and you just toss all of this goodness all together. It's just fabulous. And then you top it, you season it with salt and pepper to taste. It's really marvelous. You can chop your fennel frond. I'll show you that very quickly, and add it to the mixture as well. Just cut that down. I have some chopped over there too. And just walk your knife like that, just like we did the mint. I think I'll just use what I've got, throw it in so that you can see it. There we go. Okay. And then you serve that whole thing chilled or at room temperature. Now, the smoked salmon dip is just absolutely terrific. Take your salmon, and I get one of those little packages of the thin slices. You want about 7 ounces for the dip, so you have to separate it, and 1 ounce for the garnish. And then take your food processor or blender and blend a 1/2 cup of cream cheese, the 7 ounces of salmon, 2 tablespoons of green onion here, 1/4 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. And just mix all that together. Blend it all and whip it all together. You store it covered in the refrigerator up to 3 days. And then you want to garnish it. You can see it there. If you want to garnish it, cut yourself some strips from the remaining salmon that I told you to save, and just roll it into a little cylinder like that. So here you go. And then you have a pretty little rose. It's pretty, isn't it? And then you sprinkle it with the rest of the green onion. Serve it on cucumber rounds or with crackers, but the cucumber rounds, just put it over the top. Now let me show you everything all together. This week's menu has been a summery collection: smoked salmon dip with cucumber rounds, grilled rack of lamb, and I'm putting little booties on this. These are 2 racks of lamb crossed over, and they're called a guard of honor. And over here is the plain rack of lamb, and then over here are the sliced pieces of lamb. And then I have grilled vegetables with fennel and red bell pepper and potatoes and onions and basil crescent rolls, which are herby and delicious. And for dessert, an easy, indestructible raspberry peach mousse. And believe it or not, nothing is much trouble.